and welcome to an Everyday Canines video. In this episode of the Weave Game series, we're going to be looking at if your dog really understands their weave pole cues. And this is a very important stage in your weave training because it will assist you with all the games we're going to be doing later on. Okay, so one thing I want you to know is that I'm using 4 weave poles. Why am I using 4 weave poles? Throughout these series of games, I will generally be using either 2 or 4 weave poles. A couple of them I will use a full set, but for the most part I will be using 4. 2 reasons for this. Reason 1 is weaving is very hard on your dog's body. It's quite a strenuous activity. Asking them to do full sets of 12 weaves over and over again, you're putting a lot of strain on the body, potentially leading to injury. Certainly it's putting a lot of work on them. Whereas with 4, you're still getting the same entry behaviour and the same finish behaviour. So they're finishing on the left as they would with a 12. But it's far fewer repetitions so that you can do more work in a session and get much more repetitions without risking that damage. I mean, if I'm working on a full set of weaves, I probably will do a maximum of 4 sets. So obviously if I'm wanting to work on something that's quite tricky, that's not a lot of repetitions. Whereas if I've got a set of 4, I'm happier to do more repetitions. I'm not going to go crazy with it. I'm not going to do 100, but I could get up to 10 and be comfortable with that. The other thing to bear in mind when you're working with weave poles is when you're working with 4, you can reward sooner. So if you think about it, my dog hasn't got to weave much and get a reward. This builds up a high rate of reinforcement rather than having to do all the 12 and get back. So it gives them, it really boosts their confidence, it boosts their enjoyment for weaving because they're getting so many rewards in a session. And finally, something to think about is what happens when they make a mistake. Now, if you've got your dog and they've gone halfway through the set of 12 and they miss a pole, you've got to ask your dog to come all the way back and do that full 12 again. It can be a lot of work, especially if you're making mistakes a lot of the time. It's going to be a lot of work on the dog, and it drops their confidence and it drops their enjoyment for what they're doing because they're going, I keep making mistakes. I get halfway through and I've made a mistake. So you work your skills on small sections of weave poles, because then if they do make a mistake, it's so quick and easy to set them back up and you're not losing that drive, that confidence, that enjoyment for what they're doing. And you're getting all the behaviour you need on 4 weave poles. So when you're doing these games, stick to 4 unless the game specifically needs you to do a longer set of weave poles. Eventually, obviously, you want to transfer this behaviour. So what I would say is if you've had several sessions of really good stuff on 4 and you think my dog's nailed this, set up 12 weave poles. Test them on 12 weave poles just once. And if that dog nails it the first time, you can go, yeah, we've got this. If that dog makes a mistake, do it once more. If it makes a mistake again, go back to your 4, work the 4. Obviously, if we're talking about things like popping out at weave 12, that's a different story. But most of these weave games are all about finding entries and things like that. So that shouldn't be an issue. Anyway, let's move on to showing you what we're going to do with this game. We all train our weaves in a different way. So some of us train 2x2s, some of us train channels. Some people still train what I was told the push me pull me method, which is where you guide your dog. Whichever method you train, there comes a point where you go, hey, my dog weaves. My dog has nailed this. But it's important to know if your dog actually has got an understanding of weaves or whether they're using something about the way you're training it to guide them. So for instance, the obvious one is if you have used your arm like this, is your dog just following your arm movement? Can your dog still weave when you're not showing them the arm movement? Or if you just have your hand like this? That is the obvious one with, and that's obvious downfall with a lured method, which is one of the methods I used when I trained my original agility dog Merlin. He was trained like that, and it took me a long time to get rid of my hand signal. But there are other little things you can be doing that you might not realise are actually giving your dog the understanding of the weaves, and which when you remove then mean, oh actually I don't get it. So one of the things with channel weaves is if you've always got your toy out on the ground, or you always have a person here, sometimes when that person or that toy is not there, the dog can't weave. Now, obviously in a competition, you're not going to have a person there or a toy there. With the 2x2s method, the whole way through you're hoping to train independence. However, I realised I made a mistake, because what I did with my 2x2s, and it was an unconscious mistake, is that every time I showed my dogs the weave poles, I used my arm. I used my arm to send them in. That doesn't sound a big deal, does it? But I realised that that had then become a crutch for my dogs. That was something they relied on to help them find the weave poles and to weave. And when my arm was not there, or my arm was misplaced, so if I give you an example, I found that if I pointed at this weave, my dogs could find that entry and weave. So come here. If, however, my arm was incorrect, and you can see she's done it. She was learning that wherever the nearest gap is to my arm, that's the one I start on. And I hadn't even realised that I'd done that until we were getting along to doing harder stuff. And I went, hey, my dog can't do the harder stuff. My dog doesn't understand how to find weave poles independently without having to rely on something that I'm doing. Now you might say to yourself, I'm a fast handler. I can always be there. It doesn't matter if I have to be here and go, poles, poles, and be right with them. Doesn't matter. But the way the courses are being set these days, you will find a situation where you cannot be there. I have had it where you had to come from behind a dog walk and ask your dog to go up into the weaves. And because of the way it was set up, even the fast handlers were struggling to get to the weaves to ask their dog to do them. And with Sparrow, she went, oh, I'll wait for you, Mum. You know, and so I lost time. But another dog might pick the wrong entry, or they might spin and get a refusal. So it's vital that your dog is able to find your weave poles, even when you're not there, or when your arms are a bit iffy and you just can't guide them in. So this game is really, it's about you understanding where your dog is with their weave pole independence. Once you have this idea, you can then work on this through all the different games we're doing to build that really good independence. And once you've done that, then hopefully you'll be able to send your dog for miles out to your weave poles without you having to be there. And that will be a triumph. So what we're going to do, and it's a game I started with her, and it was a game I played when I first realised how important my arm was to Swift and the weave poles. So I did. So I stood here. I went, come here, come here, come here. Ready, ready, poles, poles. Yes. And I just said it on a word. Poles is my word. Could be weavers, could be weavies, whatever. And I waited to see if she would do anything. And the first time we did this, she went, I don't know what. Poles? What sort of a word is that? Yes, you've been using it for 2 years, Mother, but I haven't got a clue what that means. So I thought, we've got a glitch here. Now, if you watch, now I don't know if this will work, but if I watch and I put my arm out, good girl, she would actually go and find a weave entry on my arm. So what I needed to do, I said to myself, I need to lose this arm. So I just kept playing this game. Poles, poles, yes. Just using the word. To begin with, I had to give her a little bit of assistance. So I'd have to give her poles, poles, and a little bit of an arm. But once we played this game once or twice, I'd stop dropping the arm. So that she was just doing it on the word. And we did several sessions of this. Now, that's the easy one because she's got the weave poles in front of her. They're fairly obvious. I'm close. There's not a lot of other options. There's nothing else around. When we start getting at harder angles, that's when it gets interesting. Do they still understand what this means, the word means when we're at different angles? Ready? Pulse, pulse. Yes. Good girl. Okay? And what happens if we say it on the other side? Does she still get it? Pulse, pulse. Yeah. Now there would have been a time I couldn't do that because she just gone, I don't know what that word means. But now you can see we're getting there. She's getting the idea. Now, if I put my hands behind my back, no signals whatsoever, can she do it? Ready? Pulse, pulse. Yes. Now, if you can do that with your dog, you know your dog understands its verbal cue for weave pulse. These rest of the games you'll find really easy to do and you'll be able to build on them really well because you've got that. If you can't do that with your dog, that is your starting point. You need to work on that first. Go to game 2 because that will give you an idea of how you can start that with entries. And that is where you're going to begin. And then you'll move on through the games. And once you've got that, that is your foundation. That is going to be so important to improve you. No matter what method you trained on, that is something you need to know. I hope you've enjoyed this Everyday Canines video. If you have, you might like to subscribe to our YouTube channel. You can also find us on Instagram at Everyday Canines and on Facebook. I hope you had a good time and learned something from this. And if you did, maybe we'll see you again next time.